93, 93, 93. Do what thou wilt to be the whole of the law. The law is the lima. The lima is the law of the universe. So this is the first thing we must understand. So when we say the lima, we're not talking about a religion. We're talking about the law of the universe, something beyond religion, which is why you really can't treat this religiously. Right? All right. Much better. The reason I say that is, I mean, we're here in America, we're here in the West, right? Essentially, we have all grew up amongst religion. We either had religious parents or grandparents or family members, whatever the case may be. So even if we are not religious, that element was always present or close by or nearby just because of where we are. So it's easy to, again, if we come up religiously, if we come up in religion, we, this is essentially, in my opinion, why we have so many issues in the so-called spiritual community. Because just because you don't claim a religion don't mean you're not religious. That's what we have to understand. Just because you don't claim a religion don't mean you're not religious because it's actually embedded it into our psyche. Because that was the point. The point was never really to, okay, the whole world is going to be Christian or the whole world is going to be Muslim or the whole world is going to be Jewish or anything like that. That was never the point. The point was to get into your psyche. Because once that doctrine has entered into your psyche, and it is in our psyche because we have been hearing this all our lives. Meaning we've been hearing this bullshit since we were children, right? So before we can even comprehend what we were being told, it was already in our psyche because we just grew up hearing this bullshit, whatever the bullshit may have been. We grew up on it because our parents grew up on it and their parents grew up on it and so on and so forth, right? So this is not something that you just make a decision to one day not to do. And this is essentially this is what I was saying yesterday about not skipping levels. You don't get to just hear a doctrine from your whole life. It's embedded it into your subconscious, it's embedded it into your unconscious. Then you just make a decision one day, okay, I'm not that. I'm going to do something else. It don't really work like that. And we have plenty of examples of why that does not work. And again, for whatever reason, people just like to put their bullshit on the internet, on YouTube. They like to put all their mess and drama and all their filth on the internet. So you can literally see people crash out. You can see the train wrecks. But people want a fucking audience. Even if it's bullshit, people still want an audience. That's why people choose to be clowns sometimes, right? So what I mean by clowns is people who just completely make up lies. People, the clout is so contagious or addictive clout that people would make up complete lies just to have a shot at some clout. Meaning there's people that make content that's completely based in conjecture. Meaning it's not true and it's not based in fact or reality whatsoever. It's just conjecture. But basically, I would say that's the majority of the YouTubers. They're just commentators. They just report on the news. They just report on what's going on. They're not really creating any news. They just report on it. So as soon as Joe Biden says something, now they're talking about it. As soon as some shit happens in Hollywood, now they're talking about it. You see, now everybody wants to talk about what's going on with you, right? But that's the popular topic now. And it's like it just seems as if the people are just waiting for the bullshit. Like we just consecutively tap into the bullshit because it's always going to be there. Meaning there's always going to be some petty shit that you can be petty about. That's going to always be the case. It's just your decision whether you want to live that out or not. In other words, if you think that you can just make a decision one day, for example, if I just use my goddamn self, did I wake up one day and okay, I'm gonna be a Thelemite? Was that just a decision I just woke up one day and I just made that decision? If you ask me, is that how it happened? I have to say no. I did not wake up one day and just decided to be this. I didn't even realize what I was doing till after I was already doing it. That's how this works for me. Meaning I had already had the tarot deck. I had already had the golf deck. I was already reading the book of golf. I was already integrated into 93 before I was even saying 93, before I was even deep into this whatsoever. I was already moving in this direction. So as you see, it wasn't I didn't even know the word Elamite existed until after the fact. Like a lot of what y'all see me talk about and all that, these are the things I learned after the fact. It's not I came into the game knowing all this ahead of time. I didn't even know that this was even a game to be played. Because these were just my particular interests already. As you see, I came on YouTube 10 years ago. I was already on this type of time. My very first videos, y'all see me with the deck, right? So going back to my very first video, I had the deck. So before I was calling myself a Dominite, before any of these things, I was already moving in a certain direction. So when I figured out, oh, this is what this is. Oh, it's called Selena. Oh, this is Dominite. This is 93. When I began to get an understanding of what all this is, I was already deep in the game, right? So that's what they call, you could say, soul urge or the higher purpose, whatever you want to call it. I was already moving in that direction, and this essentially became an extension of the direction I was already moving toward. Meaning, I didn't become a teacher when I got on YouTube, right? I didn't. Again, that's what I mean by it's like now people just get on this shit just trying to do some shit, right? It's not really an extension of what they already had going on. I can say that YouTube was an extension of what I was already doing. And I was already teaching people, right, in person. I was already pulling up on people, giving them the game, ran this shit down before I even had a YouTube channel. But before I even existed on YouTube, I was already putting the work in the streets. So essentially, I had to gather all this knowledge already. So before I even manifested myself to YouTube, you see, I had to already go through trials and tribulations. I had already gathered that street knowledge. I had to get the knowledge from the streets directly. And I don't know. I guess that's just what makes me different than all these other people who just trying to read books and shit, and who trying to figure this shit out. I'm like, I really didn't have to figure it out because I was already immersed. I was immersed into it, and I was willing to deal with whatever came with it. And I just so happened to document it. But it was never again a decision like one day, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. And I was already reading. I was already reading books. Again, I told you I stayed in the library. I was already reading literature. I didn't even read the book of the law till like 2020. And y'all know I had already had it. I made this channel in what, 2014, no, 2013. So I made this channel in 2013. I'm just showing y'all how long this actually takes. Like this didn't just pop up anywhere. When I created this channel in 2013, I didn't read the Book of the Law until 2020. So it took me 7 years of study. I mean, I already had the hero deck. I got the boss deck. I got that in 2013. So the year I started my channel was the first year I even got the deck. But again, I didn't know any of the intricacies. I just was impressed by the deck. I didn't know anything about Alistair Crowley. I didn't know that this deck was associated with the Luna. So I had already picked the deck up, not knowing what I was going to get myself into. So this is what I mean. So I didn't pick this deck up. Okay, I'm about to study Alistair Crowley. I'm about to study the Luna. I had already picked the deck up, but I was already drawn to the deck. It wasn't because of, okay, well, this is what comes with it. And then I started to learn all this stuff after the fact, many years down the line, to the point where when I actually read the Book of the Law, and then it was a particular passage that I read, and I'm like, wait, that's me. For example, one of the passages says that you're not going to find basically the hermit. The hermit is like the ones who are devoted to this, right? You're not going to find a hermit somewhere in the woods or somewhere in isolation, somewhere in a cave. Because when you think about the hermit, you think about being somewhere in a cave, somewhere in isolation, somewhere where you're not really amongst the people like that. Probably somewhere in the desert or somewhere in the mountains, so on and so forth. However, when it comes to the Book of the Law, it says you're not going to find the hermit somewhere in isolation. You're actually going to find them in the bedrooms of women with purple sheets. This is what the Book of the Law says. I can't make this shit up. So when I read that passage, I'm like, yo, what the fuck? There is purple sheets on the actual bed. So the bed I was sleeping in at the time, when I read the Book of the Law, actually had purple sheets. And I'm like, that is true. I'm not somewhere in the mountains somewhere. I'm not somewhere in the cave. I'm actually amongst women. Exactly what the book said. So this is what, for me, I can't speak for nobody else. When I read the book for the first time, I'm like, yo, that shit destroyed me. I had to fall back and kind of contemplate what's going on. How did I just read this? Because had I read it a year before that or a year after that, it wouldn't have made that type of impact. But when I'm reading it for the first time, and I'm like, yo, this is exactly what the fuck I'm doing. This is just what I mean by I was already in motion before I even realized what I was really getting myself into. I was already moving in that direction. So by the time I started to figure out what's really going on here, I'm already full of it. So essentially, I've been putting the pieces together as I go versus knowing ahead of time what's going to happen. I never knew ahead of time what was going to happen. I was doing everything in the moment. Again, there was no teacher. So everything I learned, I had to discover or figure out on my own, which is why I spent so much time in the library. That's why I spent so much time reading literature and reading books. And I'm like, yo, ain't nobody else gonna give me this game. I have to get it myself. That's why I go to the street and find things out on my own. I'm not gonna take nobody else's word for it. However, I realized it now that that wasn't really a common thing to do. When I look at all the sacrifice I made for this, I'm like, that's not normal. People are not just really doing this. They may do it for Jesus. They may do it for Allah. They may do it for their God. They may do it for their goddess. But we're just talking about you doing it for you, not for nobody else. You're doing it for you, for your own. self manifestation or self deification, if you want to be technical. You're doing it to deify yourself, right? There is no God where I am. So if there is no God where I am, that means you have to be a part of the equation. Every man and every woman is a star. That means we all have some form of star intelligence within us that we call our higher self, that we call our oversoul, whatever you want to call it. We all have these elements within us that makes us unique from other people. That's why we all have a natal chart so that we can discover exactly who we are. Because there's just certain things that you just will not discover just naturally on your own. It's just not going to happen. You're not just going to be living life activating your free will, and you're going to discover the secrets of your natal chart. It's not going to work like that. Meaning, there are certain things you can only discover through your natal chart. You're not going to discover just by living every day or through synchronicity and all this shit. It's not going to happen. Certain aspects can only be discovered if you know they exist. Because if you're waiting for life to activate it for you, who knows how long that's going to be? Who knows how long it's going to be before certain dimensions, certain doors open that you had access to? Instead of you opening up the doors because you know that you have access to it. If you don't know you have access to it, who knows when that door is going to be open? This is the main difference between what's being done over here and what everybody else does. But that's not really how I feel like I just took the original route. If I want to be completely honest, because I'm like, we're in the 21st century, but really my approach with this whole thing was really like Middle Ages type shit. I mean, I was willing to go live in the cave. I was willing to be the hermit. As y'all see, I documented the whole thing. I was willing to be that hermit until I realized, okay, this is not the right way to do it. I need to stabilize myself. Then that's the magic. You know, like, it's only so much you can do when you know you don't have a consistent place to rest your head and you can't work your tools and your alchemy like you want to, right? So you know you're always going to be subjected to circumstance until you become the circumstance that enhances your circumstance. For whatever reason, a lot of people just waiting for life to happen to them. They're waiting to run into certain people when certain things are going to just find them. I'm like, all right, cool. But what if it takes 20 years? What if it takes 20 years for a certain energy to activate within you? But you could have activated yourself way before that. So this is what I'm hearing. This is not really what people do. Okay, I'm about to activate an energy that would have otherwise took 20 years to activate, or that would have never activated at all if I didn't activate it, or that door would have never been open if you don't go through it. This is the real purpose of studying the occult and being in the occult is because you're discovering yourself. You want to know things about you that you're just not going to learn or know in no other fashion but to see it in your own life. That's why this is relevant. It ain't even, that's what I was saying before, it's not really even about your sun sign. Everybody knows their fucking sun sign. That's not really what's really your secret. All a person needs to know is your birthday, and they know your zodiac sign. That's not really a secret. But the deeper you go into it, then you're, oh, these are things that you otherwise would, you just don't get to see and experience these things just haphazardly. But again, this is what I mean, going back to the original point, when people just believe in the fucking, in a God that's pulling strings behind the scenes, and people will just find it waiting for it to die. You know, what does it say? Be at the right place at the right time. Because if you actually learn how to do that, well, how do I be at the right place at the right time instead of just relying on some deity to put me there? You know what I'm saying? People are just passive. People are lazy. That's essentially the whole why a God exists. Put all your pressure on God. All your stress, give it to God. That's the whole point, right? Let go, let God. Whatever you can't handle, put it on God. Seems more like stress relief to me. You're not supposed to figure everything out. You got to go with God's plan. Your plan may not work. You got to go with God. We hear all this shit, right? Because this is how people conduct their lives. They're like, yo, I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do. I just got to pray to God, and God will reveal this shit to me through revelation. That's how people go about this. Spiritual people are doing the same thing. They're just not using God. So they're not willing to talk to God. They're willing to talk to the God. All they did was go from the God to the God. Go from the patriarchy to the matriarchy. When it was never about neither one. You're both. We are both masculine and feminine. For whatever reason, we want to emphasize the outer appearances of things like that's the actual reality, and it's not. That's why I was saying earlier, you may be a man, but you're a woman inside. You may be a woman, but you're a man inside. That's what the anima and the animus is. You have to get to know your alter ego, which is completely opposite of what you think you are. Because what you think you are is just an idea. And that idea was to change and who you are changing. So who you think you are, basically, as a man thinks what he becomes, as a woman thinks what she becomes, that's basically what that's saying. You are who you are based on what you know to be real or fake. So people that believe in a fake God, basically the fake God becomes real, and you can't tell them that it's not real because they don't realize that they have created this on their own. You can't tell nobody that. Like, look, do you know you created the God that you worship? Imagine trying to explain that to a person. The God that you worship, you created. No, I didn't create God. The God created me. Now people believe, no, God created me. I didn't create God. I need to be a servant. I need to get on my knees. I need to get on my hands and knees. I need to pray. I need to bow. I need to worship. I need to do all this extra shit. And then you still may not know who you are. And basically, what I'm saying is a revelation is not good enough. So let's just say you do have a divine revelation, or you're supposed to be doing this with your life. Well, how the fuck do you know how to go about doing it? Because when I read stories in the goddamn Bible and we read about the prophets, it seems to me like they didn't know what the fuck was going on. They were just led by the divine. They didn't have the master plan. They were led by a higher force. However, what if that plan is already revealed to you? You just have to learn how to decode it. That's essentially what the native chart is. The native chart is your path, but if you're just looking at it and taking it on face value, you're not going to see it as that. You're going to see it like everybody else. My sun sign is this, my ascendant is that, my moon sign is that, yada yada yada. That's not even the fucking point. It just becomes the point when people just don't know what the fuck they're doing, and again, they're still religious. Religious people trying to be spiritual, and we wonder why this shit just ends up stupid. Just get real strange. How do people become spiritual and then they just get weird and strange? That makes no fucking sense to me, right? But this is what we see on the fucking internet. People doing strange. Like, what the fuck does this have to do with spirituality? I thought we was here to be infinite, but somehow people got lost in the sauce. Now they're trying to be famous. But the occult and fame don't really go together. But people want essentially what they don't have, right? People want what they don't have, and they want it by any means, even if it don't go together, even if you're doomed to fail, they still want it. And that's what we see every day. That's why it's hard to take these people seriously. At least from my perspective, I'm not speaking for nobody else. But I know damn well I'm not going to run into a person who has made the same sacrifice as me. And I don't even plan to run into that person don't even exist. not about to essentially give up their whole fucking youth, dedicate that shit to wisdom. They're trying to live their life. But the whole time you seen me, how much have I been trying to live my life versus I have to do what's necessary to evolve and to embody exactly the energy that I came here with, which is alchemy, right? I have to transmute what I think I am and become what I actually am. This is essentially what I've been doing the whole time. It never crossed my mind, okay, I thought I was about to activate my free will, fuck this shit. That doesn't even make sense to me at this point. Like, we all have a death date, so we about to spend our life fucking around, and then we wonder why we have to reincarnate and do this shit over and over again. It don't matter if it's spiritual. Again, this is why Buddha had to reveal what he revealed. The first religion, Buddhism, the first world religion, talked, talked about what? Reincarnation. Talked about what? Karma. How do people reincarnate? Because of the karma. Where does the karma come from? Their thoughts, their idea of what they think they are. Then, when you take it to the Tibetan Book of the Dead, for those who have read that, I asked, because I want to know what was going on with my mother. I'm like, okay, she's dead. So, what is the process? According to the Tibetan Book of the Dead, it takes 49 days for a person to reincarnate. 49 days. So when you wonder, like, damn, you've been gone for like 60 days. I'm like, okay, well, now you know why I wasn't around for all that time. Because I'm like, okay, I have to dedicate this time to my mother. Let me make sure that she transitions properly, right? So I'm like, oh, I ain't about to be doing that and doing this and doing that and this. I'm like, no, I have to dedicate myself for it. This ain't no shit that I'm gonna have to go through again, right? This is like a one-time situation. So let me use this opportunity, because I call it the opportunity, because it's only making me better, it's not making me worse. It's making me stronger, not weaker. Because whenever I think about her, I'm like, does she really want me down and depressed and pouty and feeling like I'm weak and not good enough? I'm like, nah, I don't think that was the point of death. Death actually gives you new life. I feel like I'm a new person at this point. I feel like I have new life. I don't feel like the same person I was, because I'm not the same person I was, and I'm not going to pretend like I am. I'm not. So that's why I say I had to really wrestle with myself to even do this shit again. I'm like, I don't even feel like I'm optionally new no more. I'm like, that shit don't hold no weight for me no more. I'm like, but again, that's what death do. That's what death is supposed to do. Because if death don't do that, then you're not giving the lesson to death. A lot of people die in vain. I'm like, I'm not gonna let my mother die in vain. Like I didn't learn the shit. I didn't be better. I mean, I had a lot of wrath, and when my mother died, that shit disappeared. I'm like, nah, that's not the energy that I ever wanted to bring to this world anymore. I don't want to show the world my wrath or my anger and my disgust and all that. I don't even want to manifest that shit no more. Versus before, it's like I was manifesting that shit daily. But then when you go through death, you're like, yo, why the fuck am I doing that? You begin to question everything. Is it really essential that I continue to do this or go in this direction? And if it's not, then I'm just telling you what death is supposed to do. Does this happen with everybody? With no. Some people go through death and they still be doing the same shit during the same type of time. They don't change because they don't really accept it. They don't know how to accept it. But when you're forced to accept it, you're like, yo, you have to grow from it. You can't just keep doing the same shit. And death that hits you personally. death and came to visit you personally, that even is an honor. That's a privilege. To experience death is an honor and a privilege when you really know what's going on, when you remove all the sadness and all that, but that's personal. That's personal emotion. You'll never see this person again. That's personal emotion. But when we think about the actual person, are they straight? Yeah, they're straight. So what the fuck am I upset about? My mom is in a whole other body at this point. According to the Tibetan Book of the Law, she's already reincarnated. Why the fuck am I? Why would I be upset or still feeling some type of way? It would just be personal. How I personally feel, what I would personally decide. But if I go beyond myself and just acknowledge the full circumstance, I'm like, oh, she's in a whole other world, a whole other life. Going through a whole different experience, and that's just what the soul journey is all about. And when you're done going through these reincarnations, then you don't reincarnate because you learn the lesson. Like, okay, this is some bullshit, and then you stop reincarnating. But until you get to that point, you're gonna keep reincarnating. Also, in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, it talked about the various ways that people reincarnate. One of the main ways that people reincarnate is through sexual fantasy. This is in the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Meaning, essentially, when you die, you're tempted with sexual fantasy. Meaning, everything you didn't get to do when you were alive, now that's just basically all whatever energy that was repressed because you didn't find a right partner to express the shit with. Again, you people don't understand how this shit really works. If they just gonna meet somebody and they just are going to accept your fetishes and your darkness, like that takes a special type of person that has to be integrated with you. That ain't just that person don't already exist, in other words. But for whatever reason, people are walking around like soulmates exist, right? However, if we understand soul and what the soul is, because the soul is the part of you that's never destroyed. So then the soulmate essentially is a part of your own soul. It's not two separate souls. It's the same soul. If you look at the lover's card, you know what I'm talking about. In the thought deck, look at the lover's card. It's one soul divided into two expressions. That's what the energy of Gemini. The lovers is the Gemini. Gemini is the twins. The twins, however, come from one source. So, according to the Tibetan Book of the Dead, you are tempted with sexual fantasy. So that's how you are attracted to the next womb or your next mother. You're attracted to the next womb because you're going to do it through sexual fantasy. That's how you get drawn into your next life. That's one of the ways. Then, essentially, for the people who are, they fully live their lives, essentially. I ain't saying a person lives to 100. They just did what they came here to do and they live their life to the fullest. They don't have any regrets. They're able to transition gracefully. Then you got the people that don't come back because they're not drawn. You can't tempt them with a sexual fantasy because they didn't already did it all. And this is what I mean by people just fucking waiting for whatever reason when you need to just be exhausting yourself fully. Because when you die, you're going to be presented with some things that you should have did, but you didn't do, and that's going to lead you to the next reincarnation, which you probably don't want to experience. Because it's some shit that you should have already did, but because you held it within, which most people do, because again, they got husbands and wives and boyfriends and girlfriends who are just way too traditional to even dig into their own psyche. You can't even really experiment with your fetishes because again, you're dealing with somebody traditional and they ain't really with that shit. So now you're gonna die with all this tension within you, and this is how most people go. It's just unrealized potential. Majority of the people go out with unrealized potential because they were waiting for the right moment, the right person to align up. They waiting for God to answer their goddamn prayer, not knowing that you're supposed to be the answer to your own prayer. You're supposed to be using your tool, which is what we call the occult tree. You design your life. Your life will be designed according to the occult because the occult allows you to interpret your natal chart, your numerology, your Kabbalah, whatever it is that you study, all that is interpreted through your understanding of the glyphs, the archetypes. Majority of the people don't consider any of these things. So you know what happened when majority of the people die? They exactly what I just said. They see some sexual shit, some shit that they always wanted to do, but they never did it for whatever fucking reason. And then they are drawn to the next one. So essentially, whatever you leave, it don't just dissipate. That's what we call karma, right? The audio is cloudy. Hold on. So I'm gonna go out and come back in. Hold on. What's up with the audio now? We still having audio issues. So while we figure this out, I'm gonna light up. I'm gonna light up. Can y'all hear me or not? If not, I'll just have to start this thing over. But I really wouldn't be starting it over. It would just be a whole other video. So do I just need to start a whole other video? Because there's no point in me talking if nobody can hear me. So if y'all can't hear me, you just have to start this shit over. So can y'all hear me or not? I don't think y'all can. I don't think anybody can hear me. All right, well, let's start this shit over. I have to check my goddamn audio, which should be fine. All right, so I'm gonna end this. Clearly, we're having audio issues, and I'll be back. 93.